Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Major General Roger Cloutier. I am the commander of U.S. Army Africa Southern European Task Force. And it's great to be here, and we appreciate the opportunity to present a Warrior's Corner. On behalf of myself and Command Sergeant Major Jeremiah Inman, my Sergeant Major, we look forward to talking about a really important topic, and that's growing enlisted leadership in Africa. I can't wait for you to hear from my Sergeant Major, from Warrant Officer 1 Bislamu, and from First Sergeant Lewis, who was a First Sergeant, Company First Sergeant as part of our regionally aligned forces from the 10th Mountain Division. But before I go any further, I want to say a special welcome to Major General Sakano, the Commander of Ground Forces from the Botswanan Defense Forces. Welcome, sir. We're glad you're here. I also want to welcome our other African partners that are in the audience today. So we all know that non-commissioned officers are the backbone of any army, and because of that, I'm just going to tee it up and get out of the way and let the Sergeant Major get after it. But NCO development is something that we are passionate about in USARAF. And training or doing operations in the AFRICOM AOR really puts a premium on small unit leadership. Small units working in austere environments, in remote locations. They work with joint partners, interagency partners, multinational partners. And Sergeant Major Inman is going to give his perspective on how Army NCOs benefit from training in the African environment. And Warrant Officer 1 Bislamu is going to talk about Malawi's Sergeant Major's course, which has been a great success and modeled after the U.S. Army Sergeant Major Academy. So U.S. Army soldiers helped stand up the Academy in 2014. And they trained the trainers as part of the initial course. And the course is now run entirely by the Malawi Defense Force, and it's become a regional institution, graduating more than 240 Sergeants Major, males and females from 18 different African countries. And we're very, very proud of this partnership. So we got a short video to show you, and then our featured speakers will take the floor. Thank you again for being here, and we appreciate all of your support. Let's go ahead and roll the video.
I would just say that we're doing a wonderful job down there, and our focus, although it's a very big continent and we sometimes can't get in there in great numbers, it does have a huge impact, not just on the militaries down there, but the people. You know, as Americans, we don't fight alone, and we never intend to. It's about building allies with our partner nations around the world, and Africa is one of those key components.
It is up to us to bring forward creative and viable solutions to these challenges and view each one as an opportunity to work with and assist our African partners, not only today, but in the future as well.
I'd also like to acknowledge the many leaders here representing the U.S. government interagency, our allies, and our regional partners. Thanks for your presence, thanks for your support, and thank you for your long-standing cooperation. We're all stronger because of our friendship and our shared commitment.
Keep it going, keep it going.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jeremiah Inman, the Command Sergeant Major for U.S. Army Africa. I'd like to thank you for blowing off the family forum and being here with us today. I hope you get I hope you get a lot out of it. Slide, please. So every year we hold Africa Land Forces Summit. We'll go down, link up with our partner nation, and find out what topics they would like to discuss during that forum. The three topics the senior enlisted leader wanted to discuss was roles of the NCO, how we educate and promote NCOs, and NCO empowerment. So what I did, I took a kind of a different spin on it, and we talked about the role of the U.S. Army NCO, we talked about the STEP program, and then we talked about empowerment. And I explained the way that the U.S. Army does things. This is what we need from a Sergeant E5. This is what we need from a Command Sergeant Major. We didn't preach at them saying, this is how your NCO Corps, this is how your enlisted force needs to happen. Our Army's been around for a little over 240 years. Our NCO program works for us. Here's how we do it. If you need assistance standing up your programs, please let us know and we'll assist you with getting after those. Next slide, please. So here you'll see Sergeant Major Gilpin, my predecessor. So he was the one who had the initiative to get NCOs invited to AUSA. This was only the second time that NCOs were allowed to attend this seminar with their general officers. As you can see, one of our partners from Zimbabwe, there are 53 countries that we cover down on. Each country's army is a little bit different because it's got to support the needs of their country, and that's how they get after their development. At this point, we have about 100 African Command Sergeant Majors who have attended the U.S. Army Sergeant Majors course. 8 graduated last year. There are 5 currently in the course this year, so there is a desire from our African partners to continue educating our enlisted partners. Next slide, please. So you're probably thinking, okay, this is an Army Association event. Why is there an Air Force dude in the slide? Okay, this is Chief James. He's the Command Senior Enlisted Leader for California. We have 11 states that are partnered with 13 countries in Africa to assist us with getting after AFRICOM's priorities. At this point here, Chief is briefing what the requirements of a staff sergeant in the United States Army is. Not the Air Force, but the Army. So don't tell Sergeant Major Daly, but I did not go to the U.S. Army Sergeant Major's course, all right? I went to the Air Force Senior Enlisted course. So it doesn't matter where enlisted and NCOs get their education. It matters that they get the education so they can contribute to their fighting force. Next slide, please. So here you have a Ghanaian sergeant teaching a U.S. Army specialist basic hand and arm signals. We as leaders need to continue to teach and empower our subordinates because they're going to take our place here in a few years. I was a TAC NCO at West Point about 15 years ago, and today I ran into one of my cadets who's an SF major. These are the folks that are going to continue to move our Army forward. We got to continue to educate them and make them stronger. You know, in current battle, if a platoon leader falls, an NCO, an enlisted individual, will step up and take that platoon leader's spot. If he hasn't been educated properly, if he hasn't been trained properly, then the mission is probably not going to be successful. And consider this, if you had to go in for a medical procedure, wouldn't you want a doctor who was educated and trained to perform the procedure on you? I would. Next slide, please. So how does educating our enlisted contribute to readiness, right? The big buzzword, readiness. If we can educate our partners and ourselves to defeat VEO threats before they come to the homeland, that builds readiness. If we can teach our partners and educate them to defeat and kill the folks within their continent so we don't have to send U.S. forces to fight, that builds readiness. So Chief and I were walking around the World War II memorial the other day, and I just wanted to quote something I saw from President Truman. The heroism of our own was matched by that of the armed forces of the nations that fought by our side. They absorbed the blows, and they shared the full and the ultimate destruction of the enemy. Hey man, we don't fight alone. We fight with our partners. And if we're educated, it's not only good for the continent of Africa, but it's good for the world. A great example of an NCO course is the Malawian Sergeant Major's Academy. And I can't speak very well on it, so I'd like to introduce Army Warrant Officer Chief Bilamoso, basically the Sergeant Major of the Army for Malawi. Chief.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Warrant Officer Class 1 George B. Salom, Defense Force Sergeant Major, Malawi Defense Force. I'm here to outline how Malawi Defense Force Sergeant Major is doing. So I will cover the following. I will cover when the Malawi Defense Force Sergeant Major starts, and I will cover also the relationship, partnership we have with U.S. Army through AFRICOM. Then I'll cover the successes of Malawi Defense Force Sergeant Majors Academy. Lastly, I will cover the challenges we are facing in Malawi Defense Force Sergeant Majors course. The Malawi Sergeant Majors course started 4 years ago. It was 2014 when the first class of Sergeant Majors Academy started. Before 2014, it was 2011 and 2012 when US AFRICOM gave Malawi Defense Force one slot so that Malawi Defense Force can send one Sergeant Major to attend Sergeant Major's course at USAZMA. After graduating one Sergeant Major from there is when he came back to Malawi and convinced the leadership of Malawi Defense Force. So comes 2013 is when the Malawi Defense Force authorized to organize and start Sergeant Majors Academy to start in 2014. So the purpose of the Sergeant Majors course in Malawi is to change from tactical level of thinking to operational level of thinking. So as of now, I can say that the partnership we have from Malawi Defense Force and US AFRICOM, it is very important and it is very successful because through this partnership is when the Malawi Defense Force started our Sergeant Majors Academy. When our Sergeant Majors started in 2014, it was the US AFRICOM sent two instructors from US Army to teach the Malawi Defense Force Sergeant Majors course for the first class. After graduating the first class is when the two Sergeant Majors choose some instructors from the class 001. And the Sergeant Majors who assisted Malawi a lot, there are Sergeant Major Michael and Sergeant Major Timothy Watts. These two instructors assisted Malawi Defense Force Sergeant Majors Academy very, very good. And as I'm talking today, Malawi Defense Force Sergeant Major, we are doing very good. As successes of Malawi Defense Force Sergeant Major, I'm happy to say that through the partnership we have with US AFRICOM and Malawi Defense Force, the partnership is extended to almost 11 countries from Africa. These 11 countries from Africa, they have been sending their senior NSOs to attend Sergeant Majors Academy. I'm happy today to mention one by one of the countries which they send their NSOs to Malawi Defense Force Sergeant Majors Academy. But before I mention the countries and number of graduates who graduated from Malawi Defense Force Sergeant Majors course, I would like to say this. The Sergeant Major's Academy is free. When the other countries from Africa send their NSOs to attend the course in Malawi Defense Force, we don't charge anything. They don't pay anything. We just send the invitation to our sister countries in Africa. When they come to Malawi, they just learn and do everything freely, no pay at all. So I'm happy to say that. So I would like to outline you how the numbers which African countries graduated from Malawi Defense Force. Firstly, Zambia. There's 13 graduates from Zambia, and also 7 graduates from Zimbabwe. We have almost 8 graduates from Botswana Defense Force, and 5 from the Kingdom of Lesotho, 5 graduates. And from Tanzania, 4 graduates, Kenya, 1 graduate, Mozambique, 5 graduates, Nigeria, 5, Namibia, 4, and Rwanda, 8. So this is the successes of Malawi Defense Force Sergeant Majors. Apart from this, the Sergeant Majors who attended this course in Malawi Defense Force, they are now in the high position. They are holding the position of regimental sergeant majors, brigade sergeant majors, and even company sergeant majors. I myself, as I'm now, I'm a graduate from the first class of the Sergeant Majors Academy. But despite these successes, Malawi Defense Force Sergeant Majors Academy are facing a lot of challenges. Some of these challenges are infrastructures. As Malawi Defense Force Sergeant Majors started, we just started using the infrastructure of Malawi Armed Forces College. As of now, we don't have our own infrastructure. As a result, we are suffering when we want to implement our programs as Defense Force, as Sergeant Majors Academy. Since we are doing the Sergeant Majors Academy at Malawi Armed Forces College, so when the college is busy with other courses, so it becomes difficult to Malawi Sergeant Majors course to continue with our programs. So if possible, if US AFRICOM continue assisting us to have our own infrastructure in terms of classroom, in terms of accommodation, in terms of office equipment like computers and any other materials, so that we can go ahead, we can continue with implementation of programs in the Malawi Defense Sergeant Majors course. Other challenge is, as I said earlier on, that we are doing this course, Sergeant Majors course, we do our own. So we need, or we request our partners, US AFRICOM, to continue support us, so that maybe they can allow our instructors to visit USASMA, so that they can get more experience from United States Sergeant Majors Academy. So if possible, I would like to request US AFRICOM to assist my instructors, so that they can have a visit tour to United States. In short, I can say to USASMA. So if possible, US AFRICOM try to assist us. With that, Malawi Defense Force Sergeant Majors Academy, we are doing well, and we are very proud that Malawi Defense Force Sergeant Major, we are doing very good. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
How you do? How you doing? My name is First Sergeant Abraham Lewis. I am with 10th Mountain Division. I'm going to give you kind of a idea of what we did as the 10th Mountain Division. In September of 2016, we were chosen to be the East African Response Force and I was the first sergeant for that East African Response Force. We did about 6 months in Djibouti, Africa, in which we trained with not only the French, the German, but also the Djiboutian forces as well. They joined into a actual Marine Corps corporal's course and enjoyed some of their training. One of the fears before we left was readiness, as of course is the whole entire Army's fear. What we got though out of that whole entire time was we got 24 expert infantryman badges, 17 French desert warfare badges, 14 German armed forces badges. We completed team live fires all the way up to platoon sticks, and we also did this in an unfamiliar environment, which of course, when you take a bunch of infantry and you put them in an unfamiliar environment, you get nothing but the best training possible. And then we came back in about March, and we were told 3 months later that we were going to go to Ghana. So what we did was we did our team live fires and we did squad live fires before we left. Once we left, or before we left, then we also took our soldiers and we took our specialists, because a lot of our sergeants had to go to NCO development courses. So we took our specialists and we put them into the classes to teach our Ghanaian partners, in which they were then told, all right, you're on the hot seat. It was outstanding. We went to Ghana in about August, and we spent a month over there. We partnered our NCOs with their NCOs. Up here you can see Warrant Officer 2, Tete. He was my partner. He was a great individual. We did PT with him in the mornings, and then what we'd do is we would flip-flop. We would teach one of our courses, which would be in either tactics, maneuvers, or medical, and then they would teach a light course. And this did two things. One, it gave them buy-in for us, or to them, that we were there to listen to what they had to say. And two, it also showed them what we could provide to them, which was outstanding when it came to partnership. We also conducted squad live fires while we were there. Again, this is doing squad live fires in a completely foreign environment. We had to develop our own live fire lane, and then we went out and executed. Now, not only did we execute, but we also went with the Ghanaian army, and they executed the exact same thing. So we got our outstanding training, and they got outstanding training along with it. After we got done with United Accord 18, we went to Jungle Warfare School. And this was probably the best experience for my young soldiers. We received some excellent training in jungle warfare fighting and surviving, and which culminated at the end in 4 days in the jungle. This built a lot of good relationships with the NCOs of the Jungle Warfare School. In fact, one of the Jungle Warfare School instructors was a soldier who went to one of our BLCs here in the States, and which was outstanding because as he was instructing, they used the British tactics, we use, of course, our American tactics. And he could then bounce back and forth and understand that what we were coming with, but we were also flexible since we just got done doing United Accord 18 to understand their tactics as we were going through there. The experience for the whole entire thing built stronger junior leaders for us. It is not very, we have our woods here in the United States, but it is nothing compared to the jungles of Africa, which was outstanding for our NCOs. It also mentored our NCOs both ways. We mentored their NCOs, they mentored our NCOs. And I think it overall maintained readiness within our force. Thank you.
Hey, I would like to highlight two things real quick. Somebody's being a little bit humble about their Sergeant Major's Academy. I was able to go down there in March and talk to a handful of the 40+ graduates, both male and female, who are very excited about taking something similar back to their countries and attempting to stand up the same programs. And of course, we stand by ready to assist with that. What's the so what? What's the way ahead? Based off AFRICOM's guidance, we're hoping to work with our African partners and perhaps build regional educational institutes across the continent over the next 3 to 5 years, and then continue to expand on that based off capacity and need. Speaking with the commandant of MAFCO, which is the MCOE basically for Malawi, the requirements for the course, they need to run about 4 courses a year. They don't have the capacity to do that, but they're working on it. They're talking about bringing in other African partners to serve as instructors, so it'll truly become an international course. So again, great work you did with the Academy. Sir, do you have any, or anybody have any questions? Or
I'd like to highlight, so what you see with the Malawi Sergeant Major's Academy is defense institution building. And so our African partners have the desire, they don't necessarily have the capacity. And that's where U.S. Army Africa and AFRICOM comes in, and that's where our regionally aligned forces come in, and they help our African partners develop their own internal capacity and then expand it beyond their own country. So the Malawi Sergeant Major Academy is a regional training institution. You heard Warrant Officer Bislamu talk about other countries are sending them there, 240 graduates. We do the same thing with intelligence training. We do the same thing with counter IED training. And so our African partners are developing African solutions to their own problems and building internal capacity that they export to the countries around them. So in the long run, our partners that we're training now are becoming regional exporters of stability and security. And that's critically important. And then the other thing I'll say is for regionally aligned forces, 2nd Brigade of the 101st is now our RAF brigade that's aligned with Africa. We also have a lot of engineer forces that are aligned with us. Deployments to Africa offer unique opportunities for training. They offer training for deployment, for employing your forces in an austere environment. And deployments to Africa as part of the RAF or as part of building partner capacity, build readiness internal to your organization. And that supports what the chief is after, is maintaining readiness within the brigade combat teams. So that's just an example of one thing that's occurring on the African continent. Remember, Africa is 3.5 times the size of the continental United States. We've got huge distances that have to be covered. We've got a lot of willing partners that want to partner with us. So it's a great place to train, to work, and to get after the mission. So pending anything from you, Sergeant Major, we'll turn it over to questions. Any questions? Sir.
Thank you so much for the presentations. Very insightful and informative. But I want you to share with me how you conduct your training in the academy. I'm asking this because in 2016, I visited U.S. Army Africa headquarters in Italy, and from there, Germany, some facilities in Germany. And when I was there, I had an opportunity to visit U.S. 7th Army NCO Academy. And when I was there, I found that there was this Sergeant Major who was sort of the commandant in charge of the training. But sometimes in Africa, you'll find that the training of NCOs and the training of enlisted soldiers, there are officers, there's too much involvement of the officers in there. So I want you to share with me the model you used, which you find it very beneficial to get the best out of the training of your NCOs. And secondly, to share with me the selection of a good sergeant major. How do you select those sergeant majors? Thank you.
Sir, thank you for the question. I appreciate it. The only reason our NCO Corps is strong is because of our officers. They empower us to do stuff. They're the ones that write policy and help us move and to build schools and academies based off your needs and requirements. So thanks to all the officers in the audience for empowering your NCOs, appreciate it. So how did the academy begin? So one of his sergeant majors attended the U.S. Army Sergeant Majors Academy in Fort Bliss, Texas. Came back to the country, worked with his officers and their leadership and said, we need something like this for our enlisted force. So they contacted us, we worked through AMEP, which helps funds, and they sent Sergeant Major McCarroll. He flew over to Malawi, sat down with the leadership and said, what do you want your sergeant major to look like? Gave him some examples, went back, built a POI, built a curriculum for the studies, came back to Malawi, was approved by the commandant. We had a few Americans assist with the first two or three courses of instruction and development and adjusted the POI to better fit their needs. And now I think the third or fourth class, it was just the Malawans teaching the course. So it takes a few years, but if you need us to help you do something with an NCOs, we can work with your state partnership, you know, or through AFRICOM or U.S. Army to help you with that capability, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. He wants you to answer the question too.
Thank you, sir. As of now, there is no commandant, but we have a course coordinator. So course coordinator is a commissioned officer, lieutenant. Yes, but I think in the future we'll have a commandant because I have said already that we have several challenges in terms of any source empowerment in the Malawi Defense Force or in the African countries, in the Defense Force of Africa. I think it's a big challenge for any source empowerment. So we don't do our own as senior NSOs, but we have a guide from officers. So as of now, we have instructors, NSOs, and officer who is a course coordinator. Thank you, sir.
And General Sakano, you know, developing an NCO corps is not something that occurs overnight. Sergeant Major Inman has got 30 years in the Army, so that's 30 years of sequential leadership positions that he has been in that have developed him into the Sergeant Major that he is today. So developing an NCO corps is not going to happen tomorrow. It takes, you know, several generations to develop the backbone of the non-commissioned officer corps that's going to run the Army. And one of the things that we have to understand as leaders is if you're going to develop junior leaders, whether they're NCOs or whether they're junior officers, is you have to empower them and you have to give them the ability to make mistakes. They don't have to be perfect, you know. They have to learn from their mistakes, and you as a leader have to underwrite that and allow them to grow. So we have learned in the United States Army that NCOs are the backbone. We say that all the time. But by empowering our non-commissioned officers, as officers, it frees us up to do other things. And they run the day-to-day operations and they make everything happen. So it's got to be a deliberate commitment and a deliberate decision to building that NCO corps.
Yes, sir. I'm Colonel David Ngate, the Botswana Defense Force. I think one of the challenges that many countries are facing in Africa is really managing that culture change. And as he just pointed out that at the NCO Academy, they have an officer being the course coordinator for the course. We went through the same process, the same problem in the Botswana Defense Force, where we used to have officers running NCO courses. And all those officers were clueless really about functioning as NCOs because they had never been NCOs, but they were trying to teach NCOs how to function as NCOs. And it took us some time to finally get it. Nowadays, our NCO courses are completely run, you know, by the NCO course, the corps. the coordinator is a warrant officer, is an NCO. All the instructors are NCOs. So officers are not really involved in the running of the NCO curriculum. So I'm saying all this to say that we really need to seriously manage that culture change, so that, we start to really view the NCO development as being critical. The NCO should be 100% involved in the development of the NCO Corps, and the officers should just provide the support, provide the resources that the NCOs require in order for them to, to function effectively. Thank you very much.
I agree with you. Hey, First Sergeant Lewis, do you have any comments? I mean, you're working at the 10th Mountain Division's NCO Academy now, right?
It starts with the lowest level, which is the sergeant. And NCOs need to, like you said, sir, NCOs need to train NCOs. So we have a commandant, which is our sergeant major, and then all of our instructors are staff sergeants. What's unique about the United States Army is they're in the NCO development. There is no officers that are involved in the NCO Academy. It is all NCO driven. And that's important. But it took, like the sergeant major said, it took us a while to get there. So, I was a sergeant way back when, and it took years and years to understand what it means to be a first sergeant, and then more years to be what it means to be sergeant major. So it's very important that you have patience in the development, but like the commander said, give us a little bit of space, and we'll surprise you.
Sir, and just one other comment, when I came in as a second lieutenant back in 1988, all of the training I received coming in the Army was done by NCOs. So NCOs trained me at the Infantry Officer Basic Course, at Airborne School, at Ranger School, and then when I got to my first unit, as a platoon leader, my platoon sergeant, who was a sergeant first class, knew that his responsibility was to train me as a platoon leader. And if I failed, then he failed. So NCOs not only train NCOs, but they train officers too. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Carla Babb from Voice of America, and I'm going to be speaking to both of you, I believe, next week, so I'll hold off on too many questions for you. But I did want to ask you what you felt was the most difficult thing while you were in Ghana. I know you didn't have language barrier difficulties, you didn't have to worry about that, but there were a lot of things that you were talking about, and if there was one particular thing that you would improve upon for the next group of guys and gals going, what you thought would help improve the next group that works together. And then for you to really quickly, what's the biggest takeaway that you've seen from this officer training that you've been doing since 2014? Do you have any success stories where you can say this one individual soldier has really been able to grow from learning this? And then for you, if I can ask, where, because the United States has soldiers all over Africa, where's the biggest concentrations currently of your men and women?
So to your question, ma'am, the one thing that we actually took, AARs are very important, and the one thing that we took away from the group that went before us was more participation. The group before us kind of went in and did their own thing, and it kind of turned a sour eye with the Ghanaian Army. So what we did is we went in, and instead of worrying about training our soldiers in readiness, we had already knocked that out of the park before, so it was more of a focus on joint training and getting a partnership built. And that's what I would say is probably the most important thing for the next group going in as well, is get everything done beforehand, and then just worry about partnering with that African country, whoever it may be, to give them the best product possible.
Thank you very much. As successes of Malawi Defense Force Sergeant Major's Academy, some of them are the ones who lead the troops. As you are aware that Malawi Defense Force deployed 850 troops to DRC for Force Intervention Brigade. So some of these NCOs who lead the troops there are the graduates from Sergeant Major's Academy. So that's the successful of Sergeant Major's Academy for Malawi. Thank you.
Ma'am, I'd say that probably the biggest concentration would be a security force operating in the Horn of Africa.
Okay, I think we're out of time. I'll just finish off by saying thanks for everybody for coming. And just, one thing that was taught to me when I first came in the Army, that, one of the things we have to do, General Sakano, is to change culture. We got to change the culture of the officer corps too. And officers have to learn to trust and depend on our non-commissioned officers. And as soon as we do that and we empower them, you'll start to see that change. In the United States Army, every officer has a sergeant. If you're a platoon leader or a company commander or a battalion commander, you have a sergeant, a wingman. My wingman, my sergeant is Command Sergeant Major Inman, and he's responsible for keeping me straight. So I think culturally, over time, we need to learn to empower our NCO Corps, trust our NCOs, give them the resources, give them the mission, and then get out of the way. And I think you'll be surprised at what they can accomplish. So thanks, everybody. We appreciate you guys coming.